You walk into a room and realize no one sees you anymore. Not the way they used to. You speak, and people talk over you. You offer ideas, and they're dismissed or ignored. At restaurants, servers look past you to younger diners. In stores, salespeople skip you for the next customer. Even friends seem distracted when you talk, their attention drifting to their phones or somewhere more interesting. You've become invisible, not literally, but functionally. Your presence no longer commands attention. Your voice no longer carries weight. Your existence no longer seems to matter in the way it once did. This invisibility arrived quietly, without announcement. One day you were seen, valued, relevant. The next, you weren't. And the worst part, you've started to internalize it. You speak less, contribute less, take up less space. You've built emotional barriers to protect yourself from the pain of being overlooked, walls made of resignation, self-doubt, and the belief that this is just how life is now. But those barriers don't protect you. They imprison you. And at 50, you're faced with a choice. Accept invisibility as your fate, or break down the walls and reclaim your presence in the world. Here's the paradox. You've spent decades building competence, wisdom, and self-awareness. Yet the world treats you as if you have less value now than when you were younger and knew far less. You're smarter, more capable, more emotionally intelligent than you've ever been. You've navigated relationships, raised families, built careers, survived losses. You have perspective that only comes from living. Yet society has decided that your worth peaked somewhere in your 30s or 40s, and now you're in decline. The message is clear and relentless. Youth matters, experience doesn't. Beauty matters, wisdom doesn't. Novelty matters, depth doesn't. You feel this most acutely in social situations. Conversations that once energized you now leave you feeling dismissed. Your contributions are met with polite nods but no real engagement. Younger colleagues get credit for ideas you suggested months ago. Romantic attention, if you're single, has dried up entirely. Dating apps algorithmically deprioritize you, and real-world encounters treat you as invisible. Even within your own family, you sense a shift. Your opinions are tolerated rather than sought. Your presence is expected but not celebrated. You've become background, not foreground. The emotional barriers you've built in response are both protection and prison. You've learned not to expect much, so disappointment hurts less. You've stopped putting yourself forward, so rejection stings less. You've withdrawn into smaller circles, smaller ambitions, smaller expressions of self, because being invisible feels safer than being seen and dismissed. But these barriers rob you of connection, joy, and agency. They convince you that the problem is you, that you're too old, too irrelevant, too past your prime. When the real problem is a culture that equates youth with value and aging with obsolescence. The paradox deepens because the very qualities that make you invisible in youth-obsessed spaces, your experience, your groundedness, your refusal to perform for approval, are the qualities that hold the most value. But you can't access that value if you've locked yourself behind walls of self-protection. The world may not see you, but the question is, do you see yourself? Have you internalized the invisibility, or do you still know your worth? Breaking the barriers isn't about forcing the world to notice you. It's about refusing to disappear, even when the world would prefer that you did. Breaking old emotional barriers at 50 begins with a radical act, acknowledging that they exist. For years, you've told yourself you're fine with being overlooked, that you don't need attention or validation, that invisibility is just part of aging. But beneath that acceptance is anger, grief, and hurt. You've built walls to avoid feeling those emotions, but they've only grown stronger in the dark. The first step is naming them. You admit, perhaps for the first time, that being invisible hurts, that being dismissed wounds you, that retreating into silence and smallness wasn't a choice, it was survival. This acknowledgement is painful, but it's also liberating. You can't dismantle barriers you won't admit are there. The second step is rejecting the narrative that invisibility is inevitable. Society tells you that aging means becoming irrelevant, that your best years are behind you, that you should gracefully fade into the background. This is a lie designed to make space for younger generations by erasing older ones. But visibility isn't determined by age. It's determined by presence. And presence is a choice. You choose to show up fully, to speak clearly, to take up space unapologetically. This doesn't mean demanding attention or performing for approval. It means refusing to shrink. It means believing deep in your bones that your voice matters, your perspective has value, and your existence deserves recognition, not because the world grants it, but because you claim it. The third step is examining the barriers themselves. What are you protecting yourself from? Rejection, judgment, disappointment. These fears are real, but they're not insurmountable. The Stoics taught that most of our suffering comes not from external events, but from our interpretation of them. When someone dismisses you, it stings. But the deeper wound comes from the story you tell yourself about what it means. You interpret dismissal as proof of your worthlessness, evidence that you no longer matter. But what if the dismissal says more about them than you? What if their inability to see you reflects their own biases, their cultural conditioning, their fear of aging? When you separate the event from the interpretation, the barrier weakens. You realize you can be dismissed and still know your worth. You can be overlooked and still take up space. The fourth step is practicing visibility in small, manageable ways. You don't have to announce yourself loudly or demand the spotlight. You start by speaking up in moments when you'd normally stay silent. You share your opinion even when no one asks. You contribute to conversations without waiting for an invitation. You make eye contact. Use a clear voice. Hold your ground. These small acts of presence compound over time. Each time you refuse to disappear, you weaken the barrier a little more. Each time you choose visibility over safety, you reclaim a piece of yourself. The fifth step is surrounding yourself with people who see you. Not everyone will. Some people are so committed to the narrative that older people are irrelevant that they'll never truly engage with you. Let them go. Invest your energy in relationships where you're valued, heard, and celebrated. Seek out communities that honor experience, wisdom, and depth. Find friends who ask your opinion, listen to your stories, and make space for your presence. These relationships remind you that invisibility isn't universal, it's context dependent. In the right spaces, with the right people, you're not invisible at all. You're essential. The sixth step is reclaiming your body and appearance on your own terms. One of the ways society renders older people invisible is by deeming them unattractive. Wrinkles, gray hair, weight changes, these natural signs of aging are treated as flaws to hide or fix. The pressure to remain youthful, especially for women, is relentless. But the barrier here isn't your appearance, it's the belief that your value depends on it. Breaking this barrier means deciding for yourself what beauty looks like. Maybe you embrace the gray, the lines, the softness. Maybe you dress boldly, wear colors that make you feel alive, adorn yourself in ways that reflect who you are now, not who you were at 30. Maybe you stop apologizing for taking up physical space. Your body is a site of power, not shame. When you treat it with respect and confidence, others begin to see it differently too. The seventh step is finding purpose beyond external validation. Invisibility stings most when your sense of worth depends on being seen by others. But the Stoics knew that true fulfillment comes from within, from living according to your values, contributing meaningfully, and knowing that your actions matter regardless of recognition. You shift your focus from seeking approval to creating impact. Maybe you mentor someone who needs guidance. Maybe you volunteer for a cause you care about. Maybe you pursue a passion project that serves your own growth. The key is that your purpose doesn't require an audience. You do the work because it aligns with who you are, not because it earns applause. This inner-directed purpose makes you immune to invisibility. You know you matter, even when the world doesn't notice. The eighth step is confronting ageism directly. Sometimes, breaking the barrier means calling out the dismissal. When someone talks over you, you interrupt and finish your thought. When your ideas are ignored, you repeat them with confidence. When someone treats you as if you're invisible, you make yourself unavoidable. This isn't about being aggressive. It's about asserting your right to exist fully. Ageism thrives in silence. When you refuse to accept it quietly, you disrupt the pattern. You force people to reckon with their biases. Not everyone will respond well, but some will. And even when they don't, you've refused to be complicit in your own erasure. The ninth step is grieving what's been lost. Invisibility at 50 isn't just about the present. It's about mourning the past. You remember when doors opened easily, when your presence commanded attention, when you felt powerful and desired. That version of yourself is gone, and it's okay to grieve her. The barrier often holds grief that you've never processed. You've been so focused on adapting, on surviving, that you haven't allowed yourself to feel the sadness of what aging has taken. Give yourself permission to mourn. Cry for the younger self who felt seen. Acknowledge the unfairness of a culture that devalues you for something beyond your control. This grief is valid, but it doesn't have to define you. Once you honor it, you can release it and make space for something new. The 10th step is redefining what visibility means. Maybe the kind of visibility you had in your youth, based on appearance, novelty, or the male gaze, isn't the kind you want anymore. Maybe true visibility is being seen for who you really are, not the surface version you performed for approval. This shift changes everything. You stop chasing attention from people who only valued you for shallow reasons. You start seeking recognition from those who appreciate your depth, your wisdom, your authenticity. This kind of visibility is rarer, but it's infinitely more sustaining. It's not about being noticed by everyone. It's about being truly seen by the right people. The 11th step is embracing the power of being underestimated. There's a strange freedom in invisibility if you choose to wield it. When people don't see you coming, You can move through the world with less resistance. You can pursue goals without the pressure of constant scrutiny. You can take risks without fear of public failure. The barriers you built to protect yourself can be transformed into strategic advantages. You use the invisibility others impose on you as cover for bold action. You surprise them with your competence, your creativity, your refusal to fade. This doesn't erase the pain of being dismissed, but it reclaims agency. You're not invisible because you're powerless. You're strategic, intentional, and more dangerous than they realize. The 12th step is modeling defiance for those coming behind you. When you refuse to disappear, you pave the way for others. Younger generations watch how you navigate aging. If you internalize invisibility, they learn to fear it. But if you break the barriers, claim your space, and live fully at 50 and beyond, you show them another possibility. You become proof that aging doesn't mean erasure. Your defiance isn't just personal, it's political. It challenges a system that profits from making people feel worthless as they age. Every time you refuse to shrink, you strike a blow against that system. Breaking old emotional barriers at 50 isn't a one-time event, it's a practice. Some days you'll feel powerful, visible, unapologetic. Other days, the barriers will rebuild themselves, and you'll retreat into old patterns of self-protection. That's okay. Growth isn't linear. What matters is that you keep choosing visibility over invisibility, presence over withdrawal, defiance over resignation. The world may not make space for you, but you make space for yourself. And in that space, you discover something remarkable. You were never invisible. You were only hidden behind walls you built to survive a world that didn't value you. Now, you tear those walls down, and you step into the light. When you break old emotional barriers and refuse invisibility at 50, transformation ripples through every area of your life. The first benefit is reclaiming your voice. For years, you've muted yourself in meetings, in relationships, in casual conversations, because you believed no one wanted to hear what you had to say. Now, you speak up. You share your perspective without apology. You contribute ideas without waiting for permission. And something remarkable happens. People listen. Not always, not everyone, but enough. You realize that your silence was never about them. It was about your own fear of being dismissed. When you break that barrier, your voice returns, stronger and clearer than before. Your confidence rebuilds itself from the ground up. Every time you choose visibility over hiding, you prove to yourself that you can handle whatever comes. Rejection stings less because you've survived it before. Dismissal hurts, but it doesn't destroy you. You develop a thick skin, not because you're numb, but because you know your worth isn't determined by others' reactions. This confidence isn't the brash certainty of youth. It's the quiet, unshakable assurance that comes from having lived, failed, survived, and kept going. You walk into rooms differently. You hold eye contact. You take up space without guilt. People sense the shift, and they respond to it. Your relationships improve dramatically. When you stop hiding behind emotional barriers, you invite real connection. You're vulnerable about your struggles, honest about your needs, clear about your boundaries. This authenticity attracts people who value depth over performance. Superficial friendships fall away, but the relationships that remain become profoundly meaningful. You're no longer performing the role of the pleasant, accommodating person who never rocks the boat. You're fully yourself, complicated, opinionated, flawed, real. And the people who stay love you for it, not despite it. Your relationship with your body transforms. For years, you may have dressed to blend in, to minimize yourself, to apologize for taking up space. Now, you dress for yourself. You wear clothes that make you feel powerful, colors that bring you joy, styles that reflect your personality. You stop apologizing for aging. The gray hair, the lines, the changed shape, these aren't flaws to hide. They're evidence of a life lived. When you treat your body with confidence and respect, others mirror that treatment back to you. Not everyone, but enough. And more importantly, you begin to see yourself differently. You look in the mirror and recognize someone worthy of being seen. Your professional life gains new energy. If you're still working, you stop accepting invisibility in meetings and decisions. You advocate for yourself. You take credit for your contributions. You pursue opportunities that once felt out of reach because you assumed no one would take you seriously. And when ageism appears, and it will, you confront it directly or strategically work around it. You mentor younger colleagues, not to stay relevant, but because you have wisdom worth sharing. You pivot careers if your current one no longer serves you. The barriers that kept you stuck in unsatisfying work crumble. You realize that reinvention isn't just for the young. It's available to anyone brave enough to pursue it. Your creative and intellectual life flourishes. The barriers you built to protect yourself from judgment also blocked your creativity. Now, you create freely, writing, painting, making music, starting projects, without needing approval or an audience. You pursue learning for its own sake. You read deeply, think critically, engage with ideas that challenge you. The intellectual curiosity that may have been buried under years of survival and obligation resurfaces. You remember that your mind is still sharp, still hungry, still capable of growth. This intellectual aliveness makes you interesting, engaged, and impossible to dismiss as irrelevant. Your sense of purpose clarifies. Breaking emotional barriers forces you to ask, what do I actually care about? What legacy do I want to leave? How do I want to spend the years I have left? These questions lead to meaningful action. You volunteer for causes that matter to you. You advocate for change in your community. You use your experience and resources to help others navigate challenges you've faced. This purpose-driven life gives you visibility of a different kind, not superficial attention, but meaningful impact. You become someone whose presence makes a difference, whose contributions create lasting value. Your emotional resilience strengthens. You've learned to sit with discomfort, to tolerate rejection, to keep showing up even when it's hard. This resilience extends beyond visibility. It helps you navigate every challenge life throws at you. Health issues, financial stress, relationship conflicts, none of these break you. You've developed the capacity to endure difficulty without collapsing into despair. You know that hard things pass, that you're stronger than you think, that you can handle more than you imagined. This inner strength is perhaps the greatest benefit of all. Your relationship with aging shifts from fear to acceptance, even celebration. You stop viewing each birthday as a loss and start seeing it as an achievement. You've survived this long. You've accumulated wisdom, stories, scars, and strength. You're not invisible. You're layered, complex, rich with experience. The culture that devalues aging is wrong, and you know it. You become an advocate for older people, challenging ageism wherever you encounter it. You refuse to internalize society's contempt for aging bodies and minds. You become living proof that life after 50 can be powerful, joyful, and deeply meaningful. Your freedom expands in unexpected ways. When you stop caring so much about others' approval, you reclaim enormous amounts of energy. You no longer waste time trying to please people who don't value you. You say no without guilt. You pursue what brings you joy without needing to justify it. You make choices based on your values, not others' expectations. This freedom is intoxicating. You realize you've spent decades in a cage you built yourself, and now the door is open. You step out tentatively at first, then with increasing confidence. The world is still ageist, still dismissive, still challenging, but you're no longer imprisoned by fear of its judgment. Perhaps most powerfully, you inspire others. When people see you refusing invisibility, claiming space, living fully at 50 and beyond, they reconsider their own fears about aging. You become proof that it's possible to thrive in the second half of life. Younger people watch you and feel less afraid of their own futures. Peers watch you and find courage to break their own barriers. You didn't set out to be a role model, but by living authentically and visibly, you've become one. Your defiance creates permission for others to defy as well. And that ripple effect, that's a benefit that extends far beyond your own life. You are not invisible. You never were. The world may have stopped seeing you, but that doesn't mean you stopped existing. Invisibility was never about you. It was about a culture so obsessed with youth that it renders experience, wisdom, and depth irrelevant. But you don't have to accept that narrative. You don't have to shrink, hide, or apologize for aging. You can break the emotional barriers you built to protect yourself from dismissal and step back into your full presence, not because the world will suddenly celebrate you, but because you deserve to live without walls. The barriers served a purpose once. They shielded you from the pain of being overlooked, dismissed, and devalued, but they also kept you small, silent, and disconnected from your own power. Breaking them isn't easy. It requires confronting fears you've avoided for years. Fear of rejection, judgment, irrelevance. It demands vulnerability in a world that doesn't reward it. It means speaking when you'd rather stay quiet, taking up space when you've been taught to shrink, and believing in your worth when everyone around you suggests you have none. But here's what you gain: your voice, your confidence, your authenticity, your freedom. You reclaim the parts of yourself that went into hiding when the world stopped paying attention. You rediscover your creativity, your intellect, your passions. You build relationships based on truth rather than performance. You live according to your values, not others' expectations. You stop waiting for permission to exist fully and simply claim the space that's always been yours. The world won't make this easy. Ageism is real, pervasive, and deeply embedded in our culture. You will still be dismissed. You will still be overlooked. You will still walk into rooms where people look through you instead of at you. But the difference now is that you won't internalize it. You won't believe the lie that your invisibility reflects your value. You'll know with absolute certainty that you matter, not because anyone tells you so, but because you've decided it's true. This isn't about demanding that everyone see you. It's about refusing to disappear. It's about living visibly, authentically, and unapologetically, even in a world that would prefer you fade quietly into the background. It's about recognizing that the second half of life holds as much possibility as the first, if you're brave enough to claim it. You've survived decades of challenges, accumulated wisdom that only comes from living, and developed strength that can't be taught. Those aren't signs of decline, they're evidence of power. Breaking old emotional barriers at 50 means letting go of who you had to be to survive and becoming who you truly are. It means shedding the armor that protected you but also constrained you. It means stepping into the light even when the spotlight has moved elsewhere. It means trusting that your presence matters, your voice has value, and your existence deserves recognition, not from the world, but from yourself. The Stoics taught that we can't control external circumstances, only our responses to them. You can't control a culture that devalues aging. You can't force people to see you, but you can control how you see yourself. You can choose visibility over hiding. You can choose presence over withdrawal. You can choose defiance over resignation. And those choices, made daily, transform invisibility from a prison into a challenge you refuse to accept. So here you are, at 50 or beyond, standing at a crossroads. One path leads deeper into the barriers, into silence, smallness, and the slow erosion of self. The other path leads toward visibility, authenticity, and the radical act of living fully in a world that tells you you're past your prime. The choice is yours. But know this, you are not too old, too irrelevant, or too late. You are exactly where you need to be, with exactly the wisdom you need to break free. The world may not see you, but you see yourself. And that's where it begins. Break the barriers. Step into your power. Refuse to disappear. You've earned the right to be seen, to be heard, to take up space. Not because the world grants it, but because you claim it. You are not invisible. You are here, and you matter.